Hi, my name is Alicia. I am a Microsoft MVP for D365 Finance and Supply Chain. And today I want to talk about how to do a prepayment on a purchase order. So sometimes whenever you issue a purchase order to a vendor, the vendor will come to you and say, hey, you need to pay 50% of this purchase order before they will perform the goods or services for you. Or it could be that it's a flat amount. They may say, hey, you need to give us $1,000 or something of that nature. So when you get these kind of requests from your vendors, you then want to go do a prepayment. And when you do a prepayment, you actually have two options. You can do a prepayment against a purchase order, which is what we're going to be talking about today, or you can actually create a prepayment to the vendor that's not tied to the purchase order. So specifically today, I'm going to be talking about a prepayment tied to the purchase order. So let's go ahead and take a look at the configuration to accomplish this. We're going to start out by going under Accounts Payable, Setup, Accounts Payable Parameters. Once we're here, we go under Ledger and Sales Tax. You'll notice there's a Prepayment Invoice section. This Prepayment Invoice section is actually where you do the configuration when you're doing a prepayment against a purchase order. If you're just doing a prepayment to the vendor, that's where the payment section in here is used and applied. When you're in the prepayment invoice section, you're going to tell the system what posting profile you're supposed to use when doing a prepayment to the purchase order. This could be different than the posting profile you're doing for normal invoicing to the vendor. Then you're also going to tell the system, do you want the prepayment on the purchase order to automatically be applied when you get the vendor's invoice? Or do you want the system simply to tell you you have a prepayment for that purchase order, and then you determine at that time if you're going to apply the prepayment? The reason you may choose the notification functionality is because you may be anticipating this invoice being, or this purchase order being open for an extended amount of time, and you may want to apply the prepayment at the very beginning, or you may want to apply the prepayment maybe at the end of the purchase order. Totally up to you, but that's the difference between notification and automatic. If you have it set up for automatic, the system will automatically apply the prepayment when you do the invoicing against the purchase order. Today, in this example, we're going to be using the notification feature. Under purchase orders, I've created a very basic purchase order for an inventoried item. You can see I've ordered a quantity of 10 for $19.87. So that gives us our net amount of $198.70. I've also confirmed this purchase order. So that means it's already gone through workflow approval, and the purchase order has been sent to the vendor. Now I'm in a position where I can actually do the prepayment against the purchase order. At the top, you go and click on purchase, and then under prepay, you click on prepayment. Here I'm going to actually do 50% prepayment, and I'm going to do percent, and I'm going to do 50. And then the system's going to ask you for the prepayment category. I've actually created one called prepayment. Save here. When I do this, the system's actually going to create a prepayment invoice for me, or give me the ability to make one. So under invoice, I now click on generate and prepayment invoice. Because I've already indicated the procurement category and the percentage amount, the system's going to go ahead and pull that into this invoice for me. Here you will see the invoice. It is a prepaid invoice. You'll notice that the company, the invoice account is already populated. I'm going to give it an invoice number because I probably have received an invoice from the vendor saying, hey, you need to do us a prepayment. So I'm just going to put in here AKPP, and then today's the 27th, so we'll do 10/27. Again, you can put in a description here if you want. We can put in that it's a prepayment. We have our invoice date. I'm going to do T for today. You'll notice that all the fields here that are normal, you see them. One of the things you'll notice right out of the gates, though, is the match status is passed. So typically, whenever inside of the parameters table, you can tell the system if you want to do a two-way, a three-way, if you're going to be looking at the unit price versus the quantity and those different things. So typically, an invoice is not automatically passed. However, for the matching status, because this is a prepayment, the system knows that we're not really matching anything. So as we go down here to the line, you can see that the product receipt is not performed and the matching status has failed. That's okay because this is passed. It's just simply telling you that it did not do the check on here. All right, so now you'll notice that if I was sending this through workflow, I would send it through workflow like normal. For the sake of time, I've turned off workflow, but I do have the capacity to go ahead and post this. If I click on totals, I can also see a summary of this in case there's other things applied to the invoice other than just the invoiced amount. In this particular case, you can see that our currency, yep, we're all good. So we're going to click close here, and now we're going to click on post. All right, so our invoice is now posted. If we click on invoice, we can take a look at the journal. If we click on voucher, we'll be able to see that we now have a credit to this AP account, so that way we can pay it. And then we have a debit to our prepaid other expenses. And again, this came from our prepaid setup in our category. Now we're going to actually receive this invoice, this purchase order, and then we will invoice it so we can see how to apply the invoice. So I'm going to go to receive, product receipt. Now that our receipt is posted, we can now invoice the purchase order. You'll not be able to apply the prepayment if we haven't paid it yet. So I'm going to go out here and do a payment journal to our vendor for the prepayment. So we go under accounts payable and then payments and vendor payment journal. I'm going to click new, and we're going to pay the specific vendor. And if you were doing a payment proposal, it would show up in your payment proposal as well. So real life, you've probably already done a payment proposal and paid the vendor long before you've actually received the goods or the service. I'm going to pick my vendor account here because, again, I want to be very intentional and just pay this one. If I click on settle transactions, I will now see the list of invoices that I can pay this particular vendor or that I owe to this particular vendor. And here we can see that we have this prepayment. So we're going to mark this one and I'm going to say okay. It's for $99.35. And then this is going to be offset, is going to be my bank. And again, normally you would have this already set up in your configuration to do that. And I'm just going to save this and post it. Again, real life, you're probably printing a check or doing an ACH or something like that. At this point, I simply want to get this paid so that we can apply it to our purchase order. All right, so we're going to go back to our purchase order. Now we're going to do our invoice. We're going to say generate invoice. Once we're here, we're going to give it our invoice account or our invoice number. And we're going to tell it's from the product receipt quantity. I'm going to tell it that it's today. We'll notice that it came in and it's passed. And now if I were to click on apply prepayments, we will see this prepayment here that I can then select and say apply prepayment. And then that will automatically get applied. If we go up here and click on totals, we can see that we have our total amount, our invoiced amount. So we can see that we're actually only being invoiced for half of that, which was the $99.35. And now we're ready to post. At our invoice, we can go under invoice journals and invoice. Now we can see that we have our actual invoice here. And if we click on vouchers, we can see then that it actually cleared our prepayment account, got posted to our normal AP account, and did the normal postings that it would for any other purchase order. So the next time you have a prepayment for a purchase order, I hope you find this helpful. And until next time, keep your head in the clouds and keep working wise.